Sarah loved old houses. Not the shiny, new ones that all looked the same, but the ones with creaky floors, funny smells, and stories hidden in their walls. So, when her grandmother passed away and left her the old Victorian house on Willow Creek Lane, Sarah was thrilled. The house was filled with dusty furniture, forgotten photographs, and a strange, musty smell that reminded her of old books and secrets. The most interesting thing in the house, by far, was the antique mirror. It wasn't just any mirror, it was huge, with a heavy, ornate frame carved with swirling leaves and tiny, almost hidden faces. It stood in the master bedroom, leaning against the wall as if it were too heavy to hang. Her grandmother had always kept it covered with a sheet, saying it was too much trouble to clean. Sarah, being curious, immediately pulled the sheet off. The mirror's glass was cloudy in places, and little flecks of silver were worn away, like tiny stars in a night sky. Sarah could see her reflection, but it seemed different. Not bad, just old. As if she were looking at a picture of herself from a long time ago. She ran her hand along the cool glass, wondering about all the people who had looked into this mirror before her. What had they seen? What had they hoped for? The house itself was a bit spooky. Shadows danced in the corners of rooms, and the wind whistled through the old window panes, making eerie sounds. But Sarah wasn't easily scared. She had always loved ghost stories and tales of haunted houses. She figured every old house had a few quirks, and she was ready to embrace them. She spent the first few days exploring every nook and cranny, discovering hidden closets, forgotten letters, and old toys. Each object seemed to whisper a story, inviting her to uncover the secrets of the past. The antique mirror, though, remained the most intriguing object. It seemed to hold a certain energy, a silent watchfulness that made Sarah both curious and a little uneasy. She decided to leave it uncovered, wanting to get used to its presence. She thought it was beautiful, a piece of history that had somehow found its way into her life. Little did she know, the mirror held more than just history, it held a secret, a trapped voice waiting to be heard. That night, as Sarah drifted off to sleep in her new, old house, she had no idea that her life was about to change forever, all because of a whisper in the dark. The first night, Sarah slept soundly, exhausted from unpacking boxes and exploring her new home. The old house settled around her, creaking and groaning like an old man telling stories. She dreamt of dusty attics, hidden passageways, and long-forgotten treasures. Then, at exactly 2:14 a.m., she woke up. It wasn't a sudden, jolting wake-up, but a slow, creeping awareness. She felt a chill in the air, even though the old house was stuffy and warm. She lay in bed, listening to the silence, which seemed to press in on her from all sides. And then she heard it. A whisper. It was faint, barely audible, like the rustling of leaves in a gentle breeze. It seemed to come from the corner of the room where the antique mirror stood. Sarah held her breath, her heart pounding in her chest. The whisper came again. This time, it was clearer, more distinct. It sounded like her name. Sarah. Her eyes snapped open, wide with fear. She sat bolt upright in bed, staring into the darkness. The only light came from the moon, casting long, eerie shadows across the room. She strained her ears, listening for any other sound, but there was only silence. Did I imagine that? She wondered, her voice barely a whisper. She tried to convince herself that it was just a dream, a trick of the mind. Old houses played tricks on people, she reasoned. The wind, the shadows, the creaking floors, they all combined to create a spooky atmosphere that could easily play with your imagination. She lay back down, pulling the covers up to her chin. She closed her eyes, trying to relax, but her mind was racing. She couldn't shake the feeling that she had actually heard someone, or something, whisper her name. She told herself it was nothing, just a silly dream. She was probably just tired and stressed from the move. She needed to get some sleep. But sleep wouldn't come. Every creak of the house, every rustle of leaves outside her window, sounded like another whisper. She tossed and turned, her mind filled with images of ghosts and haunted mirrors. Finally, as the first rays of dawn peeked through the window, she drifted off to sleep, exhausted and uneasy. She woke up a few hours later, feeling groggy and disoriented. The morning light seemed to chase away the shadows and the fear, but the memory of the whisper lingered in her mind. It was just a dream, she repeated to herself, trying to convince herself it was true. But deep down, she knew it was more than that. She had heard something real. And she had a feeling it wasn't going to be the last time. The mirror was definitely not just a beautiful antique, it was something else entirely. The next night, Sarah tried to be brave. She told herself she wouldn't let a silly whisper ruin her sleep. She made herself a cup of chamomile tea, read a funny book, and tried to relax. She even left a nightlight on, hoping the extra light would keep the shadows at bay. But as the hours ticked by, she grew increasingly anxious. She kept glancing at the clock, her heart pounding a little faster with each passing minute. She knew what was coming. At 2:13 a.m., she sat bolt upright in bed, her eyes wide, her body tense. She held her breath, waiting. 2:14 a.m. The whisper came, just as it had the night before. Sarah. This time, it was louder, clearer, and more insistent. It wasn't just a whisper, it was almost a plea. Sarah gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. She couldn't deny it anymore. She wasn't imagining things. The mirror was whispering her name. Every single night. Fear turned into frustration. She was tired of being scared. She was tired of being woken up in the middle of the night. She decided she had to do something about it. The next morning, after a restless night, Sarah decided to research the mirror. She started by searching online, typing in phrases like "antique mirror whispers name" and "haunted mirrors." She found plenty of stories about haunted objects and restless spirits, but nothing that quite matched her situation. She then turned to the local library. She spent hours poring over books about antiques, local history, and ghost stories. She learned about the history of mirrors, the legends surrounding them, and the belief that they could act as portals to other worlds. The more she learned, the more uneasy she felt. She discovered that mirrors were often associated with superstition and folklore. Some believed they could trap souls, while others thought they could reflect hidden truths. She found a small section in an old book about her town's history that mentioned her house. It spoke of a tragedy, a young girl who had disappeared many years ago and was never found. The girl's name was Emily. Sarah felt a shiver run down her spine. Could there be a connection between Emily and the mirror? That night, Sarah was more determined than ever to understand what was happening. She knew she couldn't ignore the whispers any longer. She had to confront the voice in the mirror and find out what it wanted. She had to find out why it was calling her name. She felt a growing sense of responsibility, a feeling that she was meant to help, even if it meant facing her fears. She didn't know what she was going to do, but she knew she couldn't keep living in fear. She had to take action. That evening, Sarah decided to call her mother. Her mother had grown up in the house and might know something about the mirror or the story of Emily. "Mom," Sarah said, "do you know anything about the antique mirror in the master bedroom at Grandma's house?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. "The mirror? Oh, that old thing. Your grandmother was always a bit superstitious about it. Said it gave her the creeps. Did she ever say why?" Sarah asked, her heart pounding. "Not really. Just said it had been in the family for generations and that strange things had always happened around it. Nothing specific, just a general feeling of unease." "Like what kind of strange things?" Sarah pressed. "Oh, you know," her mother said vaguely. "Things disappearing, strange noises, that sort of thing. Your grandmother always said it was just the old house settling, but I think she secretly believed it was the mirror." "Did she ever mention a girl named Emily?" Sarah asked, holding her breath. There was another pause. Emily. That name sounds familiar. Wasn't there a story about a girl who went missing a long time ago? I think your grandmother might have mentioned it once or twice. Something about her disappearing near the woods behind the house. Sarah's heart skipped a beat. Mom, this is important. Do you remember anything else? I'm sorry, honey, that's all I remember. It was a long time ago. But I do remember your grandmother saying that the house had a sad history. She always seemed a bit burdened by it. After hanging up with her mother, Sarah felt even more determined to uncover the truth. She knew she couldn't rest until she had solved the mystery of the mirror and Emily. She started searching through her grandmother's belongings, hoping to find some clue, some piece of information that would shed light on the situation. She rummaged through old photo albums, letters, and journals, searching for any mention of Emily or the mirror. She found a few old photographs of the house, dating back to the early 1900s. In one photo, she saw a young girl standing in front of the mirror. The girl had long, dark hair and a sad expression on her face. Sarah couldn't be sure, but she thought the girl might be Emily. She also found a journal entry written by her great-grandmother. The entry spoke of a strange feeling in the house, a sense of sadness and loss. It also mentioned the mirror, saying that it seemed to hold a memory, a secret that it was unwilling to reveal. Sarah felt a growing sense of connection to the past, a feeling that she was somehow linked to Emily and the mirror. She knew she had to keep digging, keep searching, until she uncovered the truth. The whispers were getting louder, more insistent, and she knew that time was running out. She had to help Emily find peace, and she had to do it soon. That night, Sarah prepared herself for another encounter with the whispering voice. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she was ready to face her fears and uncover the truth, no matter what it might be. She felt a strange mix of fear and excitement, a sense of adventure and a determination to do what was right. She was ready to listen, to understand, and to help Emily find her way home. That night, Sarah sat in the master bedroom, waiting. The antique mirror loomed in the corner, its dark surface reflecting the dim light of the room. She had moved a chair closer to the mirror, determined to face whatever was about to happen. She had also armed herself with a notebook and pen, hoping to write down anything the voice might say. She knew it was a long shot, but she had to try. As the clock ticked closer to 2:14 a.m., Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. She took a deep breath, trying to calm her nerves. She reminded herself that she was doing this to help Emily, to bring peace to the house, and to finally put an end to the whispers. 2:13 a.m. She gripped the notebook and pen tightly. 2:14 a.m. The whisper came, just as it had every night. Sarah. But this time, Sarah didn't gasp or jump. She took another deep breath and spoke. I hear you, she said, her voice trembling slightly. I know your name is Emily. What do you want? There was a moment of silence, a pause that felt like an eternity. Sarah held her breath, waiting for a response. Then, the whisper came again, but this time it was different. It wasn't just her name, it was a word. Help. Sarah's eyes widened. Help? Help you with what? She asked, her voice louder and more confident. The whisper came again, repeating the same word. Help. Sarah realized that the voice was weak, barely able to speak. She had to be patient, to coax it along. Emily, I want to help you, she said. But I need you to tell me what you need. What can I do? Another pause. Then, a faint, almost inaudible whisper. Find. Find. Find what, Emily? What do I need to find? Sarah asked, leaning closer to the mirror. The whispers were getting stronger, more frequent. Sarah felt a surge of hope. She was finally making progress. Find me. Find you. Where are you, Emily? Where do I need to look? Sarah asked, her voice filled with urgency. The whispers became a jumble of sounds, a mix of words and sobs. Sarah strained her ears, trying to make sense of it all. Then, one word cut through the noise, clear and distinct. Woods. Sarah's heart skipped a beat. The woods behind the house. That's where her mother had said Emily disappeared. The woods? Sarah asked. You're in the woods. There was no response, only silence. Sarah waited, her heart pounding, but the whispers had stopped. She knew what she had to do. She had to go into the woods and search for Emily. She had to find out what happened to her and bring her home. She knew it would be dangerous, but she couldn't ignore Emily's plea for help. She had to do it. She had to find her. She looked at the antique mirror, its dark surface reflecting her own determined face. She knew that the mirror held the key to the mystery, and she was ready to unlock it, no matter what it might cost her. She was ready to face the darkness and bring light to the shadows. She was ready to help Emily find peace. Before venturing into the woods, Sarah wanted to try anything to stop the whispers. She had hoped they would cease now that she knew Emily's name and that Emily needed help. But the whispers continued. The first thing Sarah tried was covering the mirror. She found a thick blanket and carefully draped it over the mirror, hoping to block whatever was causing the whispers. But that night, at 2:14 a.m., the whisper came, just as clear and insistent as before, muffled slightly but definitely still there. Sarah. Frustrated, Sarah decided to try moving the mirror. Maybe if she moved it to a different room, the whispers would stop. She struggled to lift the heavy mirror, its ornate frame digging into her hands. She managed to drag it out of the master bedroom and into the living room, placing it against the wall near the fireplace. But the next night, the whisper followed. At 2:14 a.m., it echoed through the living room, just as loud and clear as it had in the bedroom. Sarah. Desperate, Sarah tried talking to the mirror during the day. She sat in front of it, speaking in a calm, reassuring voice. Emily, she said, I know you're trapped. I'm going to help you. But please, stop whispering my name. It's scaring me, and it's not helping either of us. She waited for a response, but there was only silence. She tried again, speaking louder and more forcefully. Emily, please. I'm going into the woods tomorrow to look for you. Just tell me where to look. Give me a sign. Still, there was no response. The mirror remained silent, its dark surface reflecting her own frustrated face. Sarah realized that nothing she tried seemed to work. Covering the mirror, moving it, talking to it, none of it made any difference. The whispers continued, a constant reminder of Emily's presence and her desperate plea for help. She was starting to feel overwhelmed. She was scared, tired, and frustrated. She didn't know what else to do. But she knew she couldn't give up. She had made a promise to Emily, and she was determined to keep it. She decided to focus on her plan to search the woods. She knew it would be dangerous, but it was the only lead she had. She spent the rest of the day preparing for her search, gathering supplies and studying maps of the area. She packed a backpack with water, snacks, a flashlight, a compass, and a first aid kit. She also grabbed a sturdy walking stick to help her navigate the rough terrain. As she prepared, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. She kept glancing at the mirror, its dark surface seeming to follow her every move. She knew that Emily was still there, trapped and waiting for her to find her. That night, Sarah barely slept. She tossed and turned, her mind filled with images of the woods, of Emily, and of the dark, mysterious mirror. She knew that her life was about to change forever. She was about to embark on a journey into the unknown, a journey that would test her courage and her resolve. She was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that she was doing it to help someone in need. She was ready to find Emily and bring her home. The sun rose, painting the sky with streaks of orange and pink. Sarah, bleary-eyed and exhausted, grabbed her backpack and headed out the back door, stepping into the cool morning air. The woods loomed before her, a dark and mysterious expanse of trees and shadows. As she walked towards the woods, she noticed something strange. A small, white feather lay on the ground near the edge of the trees. She picked it up, examining it closely. It was soft and delicate, and it seemed to glow faintly in the sunlight. She tucked it into her pocket, feeling a sense of hope. Maybe it was a sign, a message from Emily, guiding her on her way. The woods were dark and silent, the trees towering over her like ancient guardians. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. Sarah walked carefully, following a faint trail that seemed to lead deeper into the woods. As she walked, she called out Emily's name. "Emily! Emily, can you hear me? I'm here to help you." Her voice echoed through the trees, but there was no response. She continued walking, her eyes scanning the surroundings, searching for any sign of Emily. She walked for hours, deeper and deeper into the woods. The trail became fainter and fainter, and the trees grew thicker and thicker. She started to feel lost and discouraged. Just as she was about to give up, she stumbled upon a small clearing. In the center of the clearing stood an old, gnarled tree, its branches twisted and bare. The tree seemed to radiate a strange energy, a sense of sadness and loss. As Sarah approached the tree, she noticed something carved into its trunk. It was a name, Emily. Her heart skipped a beat. She ran her hand over the carved letters, feeling a surge of emotion. This was it. She had found Emily's tree. She looked around the clearing, searching for any other clues. Then, she noticed something hidden beneath a pile of leaves near the base of the tree. It was a small, wooden box. Sarah knelt down and carefully removed the leaves, revealing the box. It was old and weathered, its surface covered in scratches and dents. She hesitated for a moment, then lifted the lid. Inside the box, she found a small, tarnished locket and a faded photograph. The photograph was of a young girl, standing in front of a house. The girl had long, dark hair and a sad expression on her face. It was the same girl she had seen in the old photograph in her grandmother's house. It was Emily. Sarah picked up the locket, opening it carefully. Inside, she found a tiny portrait of a young man. The man had a cruel, sinister look on his face. Sarah felt a shiver run down her spine. She had a feeling that this man was responsible for Emily's disappearance. She knew she had to take the box and its contents to the police. She had found Emily's remains, or at least, some evidence of her existence. She had to bring her home. As she turned to leave the clearing, she heard a faint whisper. "Thank you." Sarah stopped and looked around, but there was no one there. She realized that the whisper had come from Emily. She smiled, feeling a sense of peace. She had helped Emily, and she had finally brought her home. Now, it was up to the police to find the person who had taken her away. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she had faith that justice would be served. She had given Emily a voice, and now, Emily's story would finally be told. The feather in her pocket felt warm against her skin. Sarah rushed back to the house, clutching the wooden box tightly in her hands. She couldn't wait to tell the police what she had found. She knew that the locket and the photograph were important pieces of evidence that could help solve the mystery of Emily's disappearance. As she reached the house, she noticed that the front door was slightly ajar. She frowned, wondering if she had left it open. She was usually so careful about locking up. She pushed the door open and stepped inside, her heart pounding in her chest. The house was silent and still, but something felt wrong. The air was heavy with a sense of dread, and she could feel a presence watching her. She walked cautiously through the house, calling out, "Hello? Is anyone there?" There was no response. She reached the living room and stopped, her eyes widening in shock. The antique mirror was gone. The wall where it had stood was bare, and there was no sign of the mirror anywhere. Sarah felt a surge of panic. Where had it gone? Who had taken it? She ran back to the master bedroom, searching for the mirror, but it was nowhere to be found. She checked every room in the house, but it was as if the mirror had vanished into thin air. She called the police, reporting the missing mirror and telling them about her discovery in the woods. She waited anxiously for them to arrive, her mind racing with questions. When the police arrived, they listened to her story with interest, examining the wooden box and its contents. They promised to investigate the missing mirror and to search the woods for Emily's remains. As the police were leaving, one of the officers turned to Sarah and said, "You know, this mirror has been linked to several unsolved cases over the years. Strange things always seem to happen around it." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. She realized that the mirror was more than just an antique, it was a conduit for something dark and sinister. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, her mind filled with images of the missing mirror, the sinister man in the locket, and the haunting whisper of Emily's voice. She knew that she had to find the mirror. She had to stop whatever evil it was unleashing. She had to protect herself and the house from whatever darkness was lurking in the shadows. She decided to consult with a paranormal investigator. She had heard stories about people who could communicate with spirits and solve mysteries that the police couldn't. She hoped that a paranormal investigator could help her find the mirror and bring peace to Emily's restless soul. The next day, Sarah contacted a local paranormal investigator named Mr. Abernathy. He was an older gentleman with a kind face and a calm demeanor. He listened patiently to Sarah's story, nodding thoughtfully as she spoke. "This sounds like a very complex case," he said. "But I'm willing to help you. I believe that the mirror is a portal, a gateway to another dimension. And it's being used by someone with dark intentions." Sarah felt a shiver run down her spine. She knew that she was in over her head, but she was determined to see this through. She had made a promise to Emily, and she wasn't going to break it. She was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that she was doing it for the right reasons. She was ready to fight the darkness and bring light to the shadows. She was ready to find the missing mirror and bring peace to the house. Mr. Abernathy arrived at Sarah's house the next morning, carrying a bag filled with strange-looking equipment. He set up his equipment in the master bedroom, the room where the mirror had once stood. He explained to Sarah that he was going to try to communicate with Emily's spirit, to find out where the mirror had gone and who had taken it. He asked Sarah to sit quietly and to try to focus her thoughts on Emily. Mr. Abernathy closed his eyes and began to chant in a low, melodic voice. The air in the room grew cold, and Sarah felt a tingling sensation on her skin. She closed her eyes and tried to focus on Emily, picturing her face and her sad eyes. Suddenly, she heard a faint whisper in her mind. It was Emily's voice, but it was clearer and stronger than before. "He took it," Emily whispered. "He took the mirror." Sarah opened her eyes and gasped. "Who took it, Emily? Who are you talking about?" Mr. Abernathy opened his eyes and looked at Sarah with a knowing expression. "She's communicating with us," he said. "Ask her who took the mirror." Sarah closed her eyes again and focused on Emily's voice. "Emily, who took the mirror? Can you tell me his name?" There was a pause, and then Emily's voice came again, clearer than ever. "Mr. Blackwood," she whispered. "He took the mirror. He's the one who killed me." Sarah's eyes flew open. "Mr. Blackwood? Who is Mr. Blackwood?" Mr. Abernathy frowned. "Blackwood. That name sounds familiar. Let me check my records." He rummaged through his bag and pulled out a thick book filled with notes and clippings. He flipped through the pages, muttering to himself. "Aha! Here it is," he said. "Mr. Silas Blackwood. He was a wealthy landowner who lived in this area many years ago. He was suspected of murdering several young women, but he was never convicted. He died many years ago." Sarah felt a shiver run down her spine. "But if he's dead, how could he have taken the mirror?" Mr. Abernathy shook his head. I don't know. But I suspect that his spirit is still connected to the mirror. He's using it as a portal to continue his evil deeds. Sarah felt a surge of anger. She couldn't believe that Mr. Blackwood was still causing trouble, even after death. She was determined to stop him. What do we do? She asked. How do we stop him? Mr. Abernathy thought for a moment. We need to find the mirror, he said. And we need to find Emily's remains. If we can give her a proper burial, it will weaken Mr. Blackwood's power. Sarah nodded. Where do you think her remains are hidden? Emily's voice whispered in Sarah's mind. Cellar. Sarah opened her eyes. She says her body is hidden in the cellar, she said. Mr. Abernathy nodded. Then that's where we'll start. Together, Sarah and Mr. Abernathy made their way to the cellar, a dark and damp place filled with cobwebs and forgotten objects. They searched the cellar carefully, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. Finally, they found a hidden room behind a false wall. Inside the room, they found a small, wooden chest. They opened the chest and found Emily's skeletal remains. Sarah felt a wave of sadness wash over her. She had finally found Emily, but it was too late to save her. All she could do now was give her a proper burial and bring her peace. She vowed to stop Mr. Blackwood and prevent him from hurting anyone else. She knew that the journey ahead would be dangerous, but she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. She had Emily on her side, and she knew that together, they could defeat the darkness. The feather in her pocket seemed to glow brighter than ever. Sarah and Mr. Abernathy carefully placed Emily's remains in a new wooden box, treating them with the utmost respect. They contacted the police, informing them of their discovery. The police arrived and took custody of the remains, promising to conduct a thorough investigation. While the police were searching the cellar, Mr. Abernathy continued to try to communicate with Emily's spirit. He learned that Mr. Blackwood was using the mirror to trap other spirits and to drain their energy. He was growing stronger with each passing day, and it was only a matter of time before he became too powerful to stop. We need to find the mirror soon, Mr. Abernathy said. Before it's too late. Sarah agreed. She was willing to do whatever it took to stop Mr. Blackwood and to protect the innocent spirits he was preying on. Where do you think he's hiding the mirror? She asked. Emily's voice whispered in Sarah's mind. Old mill. Sarah opened her eyes. She says he's hiding it in the old mill, she said. Mr. Abernathy nodded. The old mill. That's where Mr. Blackwood used to conduct his evil rituals. It's a dark and dangerous place. Sarah felt a surge of fear, but she refused to let it control her. She knew that she had to be brave, for Emily's sake and for the sake of all the other trapped spirits. Then let's go, she said. Let's go to the old mill and stop Mr. Blackwood. Together, Sarah and Mr. Abernathy set off for the old mill, a dilapidated structure located on the outskirts of town. The mill was surrounded by a dense forest, and the air was thick with a sense of foreboding. As they approached the mill, they noticed that the front door was slightly ajar. They exchanged a nervous glance and then cautiously pushed the door open. The mill was dark and silent, the only light coming from the cracks in the walls and the holes in the roof. The air was heavy with the stench of decay and mildew. Sarah and Mr. Abernathy walked slowly through the mill, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. They could hear the creaking of the floorboards and the rustling of rats in the shadows. As they reached the center of the mill, they saw it. The antique mirror stood in the middle of the room, its dark surface reflecting the dim light. It seemed to pulsate with an evil energy, a malevolent force that made Sarah's skin crawl. Standing in front of the mirror was a shadowy figure, a tall, gaunt man with piercing eyes. It was Mr. Blackwood. You shouldn't have come here, Mr. Blackwood said, his voice a low, menacing growl. This mirror is mine, and I will not let you take it from me. Sarah felt a surge of anger. You're hurting people, Mr. Blackwood, she said. You need to stop. Mr. Blackwood laughed, a cold, heartless sound. I will never stop, he said. I am too powerful. This mirror gives me everything I need. He raised his hands and began to chant in a strange, ancient language. The mirror began to glow, and the air grew thick with energy. Sarah knew that she had to act fast. She had to stop Mr. Blackwood before he unleashed his full power. She took a deep breath and prepared to face the darkness. She had Emily on her side, and she knew that together, they could defeat him. The feather in her pocket felt like a lucky charm, giving her strength and courage. She was ready to fight for what was right, to protect the innocent, and to bring peace to the restless spirits. She would not back down. Mr. Blackwood continued his chanting, the words echoing through the old mill. The mirror glowed brighter and brighter, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Sarah could feel the energy building, a dark and malevolent force that threatened to consume everything. Mr. Abernathy stepped forward, holding up a small, silver cross. "You have no power here, Blackwood," he shouted. "This is holy ground." Mr. Blackwood laughed, a chilling sound that sent shivers down Sarah's spine. "Holy ground? This mill is a place of darkness, a place of death. Your puny cross means nothing to me." He flicked his wrist, and a bolt of energy shot out from the mirror, striking Mr. Abernathy and sending him flying backwards. He landed on the floor with a thud, unconscious. Sarah gasped, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew that she was the only one who could stop Mr. Blackwood now. She had to find a way to break his connection to the mirror. She looked around the mill, searching for anything that could help her. Her eyes landed on a pile of old, rusty tools in the corner. She grabbed a heavy wrench and held it tightly in her hands. "You can't win, Sarah," Mr. Blackwood said, his voice dripping with malice. "I am too strong. I have the power of the mirror on my side." Sarah took a deep breath and stepped forward, her eyes fixed on Mr. Blackwood. "You may have the power of the mirror," she said, "but I have something you don't have. I have hope. I have courage. And I have Emily on my side." She charged towards Mr. Blackwood, swinging the wrench with all her might. The wrench connected with the mirror, shattering the glass into a million pieces. The mill was filled with a blinding light, followed by a deafening crash. Mr. Blackwood screamed in agony, his body convulsing as the energy from the mirror was released. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. The light faded, the noise subsided, and Mr. Blackwood collapsed to the floor, his body dissolving into dust. Sarah stood there, panting, her body trembling. She had done it. She had defeated Mr. Blackwood and broken his connection to the mirror. She looked over at Mr. Abernathy, who was slowly regaining consciousness. She helped him to his feet, and together, they surveyed the scene. The mill was a mess, the walls scorched, the floor littered with broken glass. But the air felt cleaner, lighter, as if a great weight had been lifted. As they were about to leave, Sarah heard a faint whisper. "Thank you." She smiled, knowing that it was Emily. She had finally brought her peace. They left the old mill, leaving the darkness behind. They knew that they had faced a great evil, but they had emerged victorious. They had proven that even the darkest of forces can be defeated with courage, hope, and the help of a friend. The feather in Sarah's pocket felt light as air. The next day, Emily's remains were given a proper burial. Sarah and Mr. Abernathy attended the service, along with several members of the community. As they lowered Emily's coffin into the ground, Sarah felt a sense of closure. She had finally fulfilled her promise. She had helped Emily find peace, and in doing so, she had brought peace to her home as well. The whispering had stopped. The antique mirror was gone, destroyed forever. But its memory would live on, a reminder of the darkness that Sarah had faced and the courage that she had found within herself. She knew that she would never forget Emily, the little girl who had whispered her name in the night and led her on a journey into the unknown. She was grateful for the experience, for it had taught her the importance of listening to those in need and of never giving up hope, no matter how dark the situation may seem. The house was now quiet, at peace. And Sarah was finally home. The police investigation into Emily's disappearance was reopened with a renewed sense of urgency. The evidence Sarah had provided, the locket, the photograph, and Emily's remains, gave them the pieces they needed to finally solve the decades-old mystery. Detectives meticulously examined the locket, finding tiny fingerprints that, using modern technology, they were able to partially lift. They didn't match anyone in the current database, but they were carefully preserved. They also delved into historical records, focusing on Silas Blackwood. They uncovered old newspaper articles detailing the suspicions surrounding him and his connection to several other missing young women. Witnesses from the time recalled Blackwood's cruel demeanor and his reputation for preying on vulnerable girls. The police exhumed Blackwood's grave, hoping to find further evidence linking him to Emily's murder. While they found no direct physical evidence, such as DNA, the circumstantial evidence was overwhelming. The photograph from the locket, showing Blackwood as a young man, was shown to a forensic artist. The artist created an age progression image of what Blackwood would have looked like at the time of Emily's disappearance. The age-progressed image was strikingly similar to descriptions given by witnesses from that era. Furthermore, the police discovered that Blackwood had owned the old mill where Sarah had confronted his spirit. It was a place he often frequented, and locals had always whispered about strange activities taking place there. Based on the evidence, the police were confident that Silas Blackwood was responsible for Emily's murder. While he was deceased and could not be brought to justice in a traditional sense, the investigation provided closure for Emily's family and the community. The case was officially closed, with Blackwood named as the perpetrator. The news of the solved case spread quickly through the town. People were relieved that Emily's story had finally been told and that her killer had been identified. They praised Sarah for her courage and determination in uncovering the truth. Sarah, however, found little satisfaction in the outcome. While she was glad that Emily had finally found peace and that her killer had been identified, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had merely scratched the surface of a much larger evil. She knew that the mirror was still out there, somewhere, waiting to be used again. She resolved to continue her research into the paranormal, hoping to learn more about the mirror and how to prevent it from falling into the wrong hands. She knew that the world was full of darkness, but she was determined to fight it, one case at a time. She had found her purpose, and she was ready to embrace it. The feather in her pocket was now a symbol of her commitment to justice, a reminder of the innocent spirits who needed her help. The house was quieter now, but Sarah knew that her work was far from over. The whispers might be gone, but the echoes of the past would continue to guide her on her journey. Days turned into weeks, and Sarah settled into a new routine. The house remained quiet, the whispers silenced, and the antique mirror was nothing but a memory. She spent her days researching the paranormal, reading books, and contacting other investigators, eager to learn everything she could about the forces of darkness. She also reconnected with Mr. Abernathy, who had become a trusted friend and mentor. They often discussed their experiences at the old mill and shared their theories about the mirror and its power. One afternoon, as Sarah was cleaning out the attic, she stumbled upon a dusty old trunk. Curiosity piqued, she opened the trunk and found a collection of her grandmother's journals. She sat down and began to read, her eyes widening with each passing page. Her grandmother had been a secret paranormal investigator, documenting her own encounters with the supernatural. Sarah learned that her grandmother had known about the antique mirror and its dark history. She had tried to protect her family from its influence, keeping it covered and warning them to stay away from it. She also learned that her grandmother had been investigating Silas Blackwood for years, suspecting him of being involved in the disappearance of several young women. She had even visited the old mill, searching for evidence, but had never found anything concrete. Sarah felt a sense of connection to her grandmother, a feeling that she was following in her footsteps. She realized that her grandmother had been preparing her for this journey all along, passing on her knowledge and her passion for the paranormal. Inspired by her grandmother's journals, Sarah decided to create a foundation dedicated to investigating paranormal phenomena and helping those who were affected by it. She named it the Emily Foundation, in honor of the little girl who had changed her life. She contacted a lawyer and began the process of setting up the foundation, determined to make a difference in the world. She knew that it wouldn't be easy, but she was ready for the challenge. One evening, as Sarah was working on the foundation's website, she received a phone call from the police detective who had investigated Emily's case. He told her that they had found a new piece of evidence, a small, silver key hidden in Blackwood's old mill. The key didn't unlock anything at the mill, but the police believed it might unlock something else, something important. They asked Sarah if she would be willing to examine it, hoping that her knowledge of the paranormal might shed some light on its purpose. Sarah eagerly agreed. She knew that this was a sign, a message from Emily, guiding her on her next adventure. She had a feeling that the key held the key to unlocking even more secrets, secrets that could help her understand the forces of darkness and protect the innocent from their influence. The feather in her pocket seemed to vibrate with excitement. The whispers might be gone, but the journey had just begun. She was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that she was doing it for Emily, for her grandmother, and for all those who needed her help. The house felt like a sanctuary now, a place of peace and purpose. Sarah was finally home, and she was ready to begin her life's work. The police detective, a man named Detective Harding, arrived at Sarah's house the next day with the small, silver key. He handed it to her, explaining that it was old and intricately designed, with a small engraving of a raven on the handle. Sarah took the key, examining it closely. It felt cold to the touch, and she could sense a faint energy emanating from it. She closed her eyes, trying to focus her thoughts and connect with Emily's spirit. Suddenly, she heard Emily's voice in her mind, clearer than ever before. "The library," Emily whispered. "The key unlocks the library." Sarah opened her eyes, her heart pounding. "The library?" she asked Detective Harding. "What library?" Detective Harding shrugged. "There's no library in the old mill," he said. "Maybe it unlocks something else entirely." Sarah shook her head. "No, I'm sure it's a library. But not the library at the mill. It must be somewhere else." She thought for a moment, trying to recall anything she had read about libraries in the area. Then, it hit her. "The Blackwood Manor," she said. Silas Blackwood had a private library in his manor house. It burned down many years ago, but the ruins are still there. Detective Harding's eyes widened. "You think the key unlocks something at the Blackwood Manor ruins?" Sarah nodded. "It's worth a try," she said. "I have a feeling that Emily is leading us there." Together, Sarah and Detective Harding drove to the Blackwood Manor ruins, a desolate and overgrown area located deep in the woods. The manor house had been a grand and imposing structure in its day, but now it was nothing but a pile of rubble and ashes. They walked carefully through the ruins, searching for any sign of a library. They found several crumbling walls and overgrown pathways, but nothing that resembled a library. Just as they were about to give up, Sarah noticed a small, stone archway hidden beneath a tangle of vines. She pulled back the vines, revealing a dark and narrow passageway. "This is it," she said. "This is the entrance to the library." Detective Harding hesitated. "Are you sure you want to do this, Sarah? This place feels wrong." Sarah nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "I have to do this," she said. "I have to find out what's hidden in that library." She took a deep breath and stepped into the passageway, Detective Harding following close behind. The passageway was dark and damp, and the air was thick with the smell of mold and decay. They walked for what seemed like an eternity, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. Finally, they reached the end of the passageway and stepped into a large, circular room. It was the library. The room was in ruins, the walls crumbling, the ceiling collapsed. But despite the destruction, Sarah could still see the remnants of its former glory. Shelves lined the walls, filled with charred books and decaying scrolls. In the center of the room stood a large, stone pedestal. On top of the pedestal rested a small, wooden box. Sarah approached the pedestal, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew that the key would unlock the box. She took the key from her pocket and inserted it into the lock. The lock clicked open. Sarah lifted the lid of the box, revealing its contents. Inside, she found a single object, a small, silver mirror. It was a miniature version of the antique mirror that had haunted her house. It was just as dark, just as mysterious, and just as dangerous. Sarah knew that her journey was far from over. The feather in her pocket felt cold. The fight against the darkness had just begun again. Detective Harding stared at the miniature mirror, his face etched with concern. "What do you think it is, Sarah?" he asked. "Another portal?" Sarah nodded slowly. "I think so," she said. "But I don't know what it's for. It's much smaller than the other one, and it doesn't seem to radiate as much energy." She carefully picked up the miniature mirror, examining it closely. It was made of the same dark, silvered glass as the larger mirror, and its frame was carved with the same intricate designs. But there was something different about it, something calmer. "Maybe it's not meant for evil," Detective Harding suggested. "Maybe it's meant for something else entirely." Sarah considered his words. It was possible. Maybe the miniature mirror was a tool for good, a way to connect with the spirit world in a positive way. She decided to take the mirror back to her house and study it further. She knew that she had to be careful. The mirror was dangerous, and she didn't want to risk unleashing another evil force. Back at her house, Sarah placed the miniature mirror on a table in her study. She spent hours poring over her grandmother's journals, searching for any mention of similar objects. She found a few entries that hinted at the existence of smaller mirrors, used for communication with spirits and for healing purposes. Her grandmother had written that these mirrors could be powerful tools for good, but only if they were used with respect and caution. Sarah realized that she had a responsibility to protect the miniature mirror and to learn how to use it for good. She couldn't let it fall into the wrong hands. She decided to contact Mr. Abernathy, hoping that he could offer some guidance. He arrived at her house the next day, eager to examine the mirror. He studied it carefully, his brow furrowed in concentration. "This is a powerful object, Sarah," he said. "It could be used for great good, or for great evil. It all depends on who is wielding it." He explained to Sarah that the mirror could be used to communicate with spirits, to heal the sick, and to even glimpse into the future. But it could also be used to manipulate spirits, to curse enemies, and to unleash chaos upon the world. "You must be very careful, Sarah," he said. "The mirror will amplify your intentions, both good and bad. So, make sure that your heart is pure and that your motives are noble." Sarah nodded, understanding the weight of his words. She knew that she had to be worthy of the mirror, to use it only for the benefit of others. She decided to keep the mirror hidden in her house, protecting it from those who might seek to use it for evil. She knew that her journey was far from over, but she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. She had the knowledge of her grandmother, the guidance of Mr. Abernathy, and the spirit of Emily to guide her on her way. The feather in her pocket felt warm and comforting, a reminder of the good she had done and the good she was yet to do. The house was a sanctuary, a place of peace and purpose, where she could hone her skills and prepare for the battles to come. The whispers were gone, but the echoes of hope remained. Years passed, and Sarah dedicated her life to the Emily Foundation, traveling the world, investigating paranormal phenomena, and helping those who were haunted by restless spirits. She learned to control the miniature mirror, using it to communicate with the deceased and to bring comfort to the living. She never forgot Emily, the little girl who had whispered her name in the night and changed her life forever. She kept the feather that she had found in the woods, carrying it with her as a reminder of her promise to help those in need. The old house on Willow Creek Lane became a sanctuary, a place of peace and healing. Sarah filled it with light and laughter, transforming it from a place of fear into a place of hope. She often wondered about the antique mirror, the one that had started it all. She knew that it was gone, destroyed forever. But she also knew that its memory would live on, a reminder of the darkness that she had faced and the courage that she had found within herself. She realized that the mirror had been a test, a challenge that she had been destined to overcome. It had taught her the importance of listening to those in need, even if they were beyond the grave. It had taught her the power of hope, the strength of courage, and the importance of never giving up, no matter how dark the situation may seem. She understood that the world was full of darkness, but it was also full of light. And it was her responsibility to help spread that light, to bring hope to those who were lost in the shadows. She looked around her house, her heart filled with gratitude. The house was quiet now, the whispers silenced, the antique mirror a distant memory. But it was also filled with peace, a sense of calm that had eluded her for so long. She knew that she was finally home, not just in the physical sense, but in a deeper, more meaningful way. She had found her purpose, her calling, and she was ready to embrace it with all her heart. She smiled.